It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Muck, you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Muck's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. Hey, I was reading a very interesting story in the New York Times today about durian and being an Asian who likes durian. And if you know durian, well, think of the smelliest fruit possible and the most offensive fruit you can think of, like old fruit, and that's what durian is. And I never really experienced the power of durian until I went to Malaysia. And there, durian's all over. I mean, it's like this is a sacred treat. And I went there, it was about 10 years ago. And that's when people were going like durian crazy. And so I'm really sad. The news in in Malaysia now is that they have too much durian, which should be great. It must mean that there's a like a good price drop, but it's too much of a price drop because now there's durian. Just the country is overloaded with durian. There's like an invasion of durian they can't sell because they were making this like when it was exploding in 2015 when I was there. And I couldn't believe, you just go up to a place and they're like hacking these big durians and like sticking it down your mouth like it was like some kind of opiate. It's like this thick thing, and if you look at the picture, it looks like lungs, right, or kidneys or something, right? It looks like an organ, and you just put it in your mouth, and it just feels good, and it smells bad. But you get over the smell, and then the people in Malaysia told me the way you eat durian is that you just shove it down your mouth, and then you follow it up with rambutan. Eat some rambutan, you're fine. It's like an antidote to the smell, and if you think because there are laws in certain hotels in Asia that say if you've had durian, don't bring it into the hotel. Don't if you got don't if you have it, right? Don't you dare bring it in the hotel. They'll charge you. It's like having like bringing a dog into a hotel. They'll charge you a fee. So you got to pay a durian fee in Malaysia. So I'm very disheartened to hear that there's too much durian now in Malaysia. There's a glut. They started growing more durian around 2015, and then of course it takes 10 years to for a mature durian tree to start producing. Now they're producing. Now they have too many. And what has happened? They used to be able to sell durian in like a flash frozen sort of state. Now people want fresh durian. And there aren't enough flights going from Malaysia to China. And so now they're stuck with durian. I don't know. I think some entrepreneur ought to get in on this and say, look, we'll take the flash frozen durian and we'll sell it to Asians in America and we'll make a ton. I think it's an opportunity, right? I mean, they're like bemoaning the fact in Malaysia, like, oh, we got all this durian, and as long as it's in the fruit form, it doesn't smell. Anyway, this is what happens when you wake up in the morning and the first as you scroll, you do your doom scroll, the first thing you see is the story on the durian glut in Malaysia. Anyway, hi. I just, that story just stuck in my mind. Of course, there are other big stories that we need to talk about here on this talk show. That's what this is. It's a talk show in the old fashioned sense of talk shows. We there's a topic, there's a news story, we talk about it. Of course, I should take a few minutes or seconds to thank people who came to my show. 69 Emil Amok, the show that was at the Petro stage. But if you missed it, there's a new show coming up March 14th, 15th, 16th, and 19th at the Petro stage. And I think some of it will be live streamed. There. Oh, all right, now we're back. Sorry about that. So, the next show will be at the Mature Stage, my new show, Emil, Amok Anchorman, where I talk about my search for the anchor slot somewhere, and then I get there, and then what happens? Well, just like anything else, you strive for something, and it's not exactly what you thought. So I tell that story March, let's see, March 14th, 15th, 16th, at various times, and also on the 19th. It's at the Pro Stage, and you can go to tickets at playground-sf.org. Go to the box office and buy your tickets. It'd be great to see you. All right. Also, yeah, I'm going to make appearances all over the place. I'll be up in Sacramento for just a 5-minute bit over at Laughs Unlimited coming up sometime in March. I'm also going to be in Fresno at the Rogue Festival. So I'll put all details on my website on amok.com. All right. So the big news of the day really is the Nancy Guthrie breakthrough. I've talked about it briefly with Dan Gonzalez, my cohort on Fridays when we talk about the news. It's a sad story. I'm not a big real crime guy, but I know a lot of real crime people are just kind of like wondering what's going on here. Is there really a a person of interest who's sending these ransom notes? The Guthrie family seems to think so. They're at least we see that they're posting messages and videos. The big story today is here's this camera that they said was disengaged. I mean, here's the thing: you don't know what is really true, and you don't know what is really going on, and except for what they tell the news. They may have told the news too much, but observers say if you really were looking for a $6 million ransom, would you go to TMZ? Would you go to the news? Or would you deal with the family quietly and say, look, I'll get your mom back? If you were really sophisticated and a professional, wouldn't you just deal with the family? I don't know. See, I know people are into true crime and they think about these things. I don't know, but there's someone in the media suggesting that Savannah Guthrie take a lie detector test, and that would make everyone else in her family take a lie detector test because Savannah does it, so everyone else will, and that might give us some information. I don't know. I think some people are saying usually crimes of this nature are done by people who know the perp is known to the victim. And so maybe there are things about Savannah's family that we don't know. I mean, I don't want to even go there really because, it's kind of private. But if you look at how this case is breaking down, it's just strange that a real professional who wanted money wouldn't go straight to the family and keep it out of the eyes of the media and just deal privately with this. So I don't know. I actually I don't know what's going on, but Savannah Guthrie reportedly has said that these new images that have come out, which is the big story today, they don't know. They don't know who this person is, or they're not saying. It's not. And once again, it's not clear. It's sad. It's gone on 10 days now, and you worry about an 84-year-old woman who's on medication, who has limited ambulatory ability. You worry about that. So the best you can do is hope for prayers, thoughts and prayers, and let's hope that there's a breakthrough, and let's hope that the crowdsourcing idea of getting information out to the public will generate something real. You hope. I don't know. It's dominated the news. The other story that's dominated the news has been the the Epstein files, which it always goes back to the Epstein files, right? Because everything else is a distraction from the 3 million other documents or 2.5 million other documents that aren't in there. The 3 million that we have in there now are pretty damning. I've talked about, what I was curious about, what's in the Epstein files. I mean, tell me about who's redacted, and I said, hey, if Filipino workers aren't redacted, why aren't they redacted? There's a shame involved in being in these things, and why are you hurting these innocent people who are looking for a job? Of course, maybe they should be looking for jobs with someone other than Jeffrey Epstein, but they were there to run his household, be service workers, fix his yachts, or be crew members for his yacht. I mean, you have full resumes and pictures. So I was speaking out for the little people who get squashed. Although, look, it's important. You got to, the victims are, of course, important and they have priority, but there are a lot of innocents out there who are not protected, not redacted. So who gets redacted? Oh, the rich, important people are redacted. And that's sort of the subject that's come up over the last 24 hours. There are 6 people in particular who should not be redacted, who may or perhaps should face real legal consequences and should join Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was saying the Fifth Amendment, singing the Fifth yesterday to all questions, and it was so orchestrated. If you haven't been following it, they hauled her in to be deposed, and she just pled the Fifth. She did, she felt that speaking would incriminate her, which tells you one thing. There's a lot there. There's a lot there that she's not saying. And we're not talking about the things she was already convicted for, that she's already serving time for. But it should tell you, if she's pleading the Fifth on these other cases, why would Donald Trump be even considering giving her a pardon? I mean, it seems like, oh, well, if he gives her a pardon, this is the quid pro quo. Ghislaine Maxwell would just say, Donald Trump had nothing to do with anything, which is what Donald Trump is interested in, which is the only reason why the Ghislaine Maxwell pardon is still on the table. But he's given her some nice perks to date, a nice minimum security place. She gets to do her hair. She gets to live out her sentence so far in a way that doesn't make her feel like a criminal, doesn't make her feel like a monster. But you ask people who were subjected to her, and they call her a monster. Hey, in fact, Donald Trump in 2006 called Ghislaine Maxwell evil, and told the Palm Beach police, the West Palm Beach police, that, hey, everyone's talking about Jeffrey Epstein and this Maxwell person. That they know exactly what they're doing. She's evil. You got to get on this, and they acted. That was a revelation by the Miami Herald the other day. So now everyone who is privy is looking at all the news that's come out on the Epstein files and saying, the Republicans and Trump have not been good with transparency here, because it appears as if there is a cover-up. Could it be a cover-up? And this is why, since the summer, it's always been about the Epstein files. And thank goodness the Epstein files is the one thing that America seems united about. America's united over the Epstein files. This is the biggest thing. That's why everything else is a nice distraction for Donald Trump, including Bad Bunny, including those racist memes with Obama and that creepy racist video, which I write about in my latest column, along with some observations about Mr. Bunny, on my Inquirer.net column. Check it out on Inquirer.net. Go to Emil Guillermo. That's the diaspora website for Filipinos. I write for Filipino American media. Inquirer.net is the leading news organization in the Philippines with this website. Check it out, Inquirer.net. Look for my column there. Yeah, just finishing up on Epstein. It's interesting because of those 6 people that have been redacted. The congressmen who've been very aggressive on this say they know the 6 names, they're ready to reveal it. I hope they do. I hope they do, because we need to see who's out there who was consorting with Epstein. That's sort of the key thing, that, hey, there's a reason why you weren't invited to the Epstein parties, and neither was I, and that's because the rich are different, and the rich are amoral, and the rich are, when they're amongst each other, they ask each other for favors, and here's what they do. That's why the Howard Lutnick thing is very interesting. The Commerce Secretary and overall, glad hander for Donald Trump. Apparently, when he went on a podcast and said, hey, Jeffrey Epstein is gross. And I went, we share a wall together in our billionaire condo or whatever it is, mansion. And I went to see his house. I said, we're never consorting with him. That was he said that about an incident in 2006. And then later on, as the Epstein files reveal, Lutnick and his family, they met Epstein and they socialized. He doesn't remember what they talked about, but what does it show? It shows that Howard Lutnick is a liar when it comes to Epstein. Because lying is what people do, right? You don't tell the truth. Lying is what Americans do now, because the commander-in-chief is the best liar in the world. Rule of law, there's just rule of Trump. Let it guide your own selfishness. It's really pathetic, because we don't have the kind of honesty and truthfulness in our government. And it's all because of how CFDT 34, convicted felon Donald Trump, 34 counts, has conducted himself this first year of the second term. And so his cabinet member, Lutnick, right, who gets himself involved in all these things, he's negotiating this and that. He's Mr. Tariff. He's the front person for tariffs for Trump. I mean, not really Scott Besson anymore. Although he, whenever he needs to rub needs someone to get their nose rubbed into the Trump poop, Besson's always there saying, me. Just like, Tulsi Gabbard, oh, you need someone to go get those ballots in Georgia? Me. Yeah, everyone wants to please Donald Trump. This is why we're a dysfunctional government, because it's a government of sycophants. So, I don't know. Howard Lutnick has been caught in a lie. Is he going to resign? Is he going to fall on his sword? And then so Trump can say, well, yeah, Lutnick could have been a good guy, but hey, I guess he was there with Epstein. Oh, I was there with Epstein too, but nothing is wrong. And look, we have Ghislaine Maxwell ready to exonerate me. Ghislaine Maxwell, who I called evil, she'll exonerate me. You see how messy it gets? Man, this is who you voted for, America. And, the polls are just all upside down on Trump now, on all the key issues, not just do you like him or is he doing a good job, but, on the economic issues. And it's not the left and the right, it's really the independents. And who's the independents? It's all the people who kind of peeled off and voted for him the last time and don't seem to want to have anything to do with them now. Trump's in trouble. Trump's in trouble. And of course, I mean, this is the way he runs things. He's going to be in trouble. Look, I'm kind of agnostic. Really, I am. I'd like to see him do well, right? I mean, he's my president. I'd like to see him do well. I didn't vote for him, but that's all right. One of the shows last night showed how Donald Trump is so different from the way things, you know, the way true sportsmanship is displayed. And they were using the Super Bowl as an example. Here's the coach of the opposing teams, and they shake hands and sportsmanship. That's what America's about. Do we see that? Do we see it? We saw that at the Super Bowl. Do we see it now in politics, in our governance? No, because the man in charge doesn't believe in sportsmanship. He believes in self-service, in all ways, self-service. So we talked about Letnick. And we'll get to the Olympics. Let me talk about measles. This was in Axios, and they made it their lead for the afternoon. They said they called it the one big thing for the afternoon, and that is that one of President Trump's top public health voices is urging Americans to get their measles shot amid an outbreak jeopardizing the country's disease elimination status. Dr. Mehmet Oz, celebrity turned Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services director, said on CNN on Sunday, quote, not all illnesses are equally dangerous and not all people are equally susceptible to those illnesses, but measles is one you should get your vaccine. That's what he said. And the comments, as Axios points out, contrast with the general vaccine skepticism of his boss, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And RFK recently oversaw controversial changes to the childhood vaccine schedule, though it still calls for all kids to get a measles shot. But this is the kind of confusion that you get when you have Trump running things and he has sycophants like Oz and RFK Jr. Look, RFK Jr. knows some things, not everything. And there's a little wiggle room that allows him to say, yeah, get your measles shot. But there's a lot of confusion, a lot of people getting sick. Measles is highly contagious. And we are just sinking further and further down below where we should be on everything. And when you see it with measles, it's dangerous, it's deadly, it's not good. But now we have Oz saying, hey, take the vaccine, please. We have a solution for our problem. If you're confused, well, blame the top. Blame the top. That's how we get here. It's one man's fault. One man who does not know what the F he's doing. But he's the most unqualified person to be president ever, right? He's the affirmative action president. Oh, white affirmative action. White affirmative action. The other thing, hey, here's a story. Have you been watching the Olympics? There was one woman, her name was Emilia, Ukrainian, but she's in the U.S., she's skating for the U.S. This is the thing about the Olympics. It's kind of neat how, I guess, how you can't tell the players just by, their look or their name. I mean, there were the ice dancers who they said they were born in Ukraine and they can't skate there because of the war, but hey, they're now in the U.S., they're skating for the U.S. And I don't know if they medaled, but they looked pretty when they were they were leading when I happened to catch it. Eileen Gu from San Francisco. She won silver in, I think it was the freeform skiing. Yesterday was it? One of the things. The thing about Gu, of course, 4 years ago, she 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 skied for China. She's still skiing for China, even though born in the U.S., went to high school here, went to Stanford. Um, she's 4 years older, and apparently she's lost a step because she didn't win gold. But she performs, she skis for China, her mother's country. When we were in China, that was a big news story. Less of a story now, but I still feel a little odd watching her, thinking, why? I mean, why didn't she just do it for the U.S.? I guess it's her option, but in some ways, you got to wonder about her motives, and in other ways, you say, well, who cares? Let her do whatever she wants, and that's the way these games are. You can't tell who's American, who's not American, and the Americans aren't doing that well, medal wise yet. I think Norway's ahead, but I kind of watched it. I watched the team ice skating. I'm rooting for Alyssa Liu, I think, right? The young girl from Oakland. I thought she was much older because her story was, hey, she wanted to get back in the competition, and she, told her coach, "I'm back in." I thought, well, maybe she's mid-20s, wanting to get back. She's like 20 years old. If she does well, she's got another, maybe you're good until you're about 28. I mean, that's pretty old for a skater. But yeah, I noticed there are a lot of people who are older and skating or doing their thing, and that's great. I think, hey, look, I'm with you. Age is a number. Still a little upset though about, what country. I mean, a lot of Americans are competing for their parents' country. It's not so bad when you're doing that, and like for example, the Filipino American from Utah, Tallulah. I mean, great. She can ski for the Philippines. Is she going to win? Probably not. But she's an American who gets that opportunity. I think that's great. It's another thing when you're an American skiing for your mother's country, in case of Eileen Gu, and she can medal. Yeah, we want those medals. Come on. Got to get a little Trumpy here. Got to get a little Trump. We want those medals. We want those medals back. Well, Eileen Gu only won a silver. So, here is an important Olympic history note. Swedish skier Elis Lundholm, or Elias Lundholm, today became the first openly transgender athlete to compete in the Winter Olympics. Lundholm, who was assigned female at birth and identifies as male, is competing in the women's category. Ooh, don't tell the Trumpers. Well, he was assigned female at birth, identifies as male. She's competing in the women's category. So that's right, right? I mean, maybe there should just be that flexibility. If you're a woman, right, assigned female at birth, identify as male, you should be allowed to compete in the women's category. You're a woman. A lot of people are upset because assigned male at birth identify as female, and they're competing at women in the women's category. Trumpers hate that. Well, this is a twist. Lundholm was assigned female at birth, identifies as male, is competing in the women's category. That sounds like, hey, that's kind of right, I guess. What kind of advantage did she have? Well, she finished 29th out of 30th in the first qualification run. Only the top 10 automatically make the finals, meaning Lundholm will need a much better finish tomorrow to advance. reports Axios. But it's interesting. The first openly transgender athlete to compete in the Winter Olympics. And she does it in a way that is opposite the controversy, right? It's not a man competing with the women, it's a woman competing as a woman, and she's a trans man. Okay, okay. Other stories. We talked about the Letnick story. Let's see. China expects a record 9.5 billion trips tied to Lunar New Year a week from today. People want to go home to see their children, my grandchildren, my husband. The year of the fire horse happening, so expect that. Let's see. Company running Eddie Bauer stores in the US and Canada has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Well, I was wondering about that. I've got an Eddie Bauer jacket, and I want to cross out the Eddie Bauer part, but how do they stay in business? They're not exactly hip or cool. Government officials removed a pride flag from Manhattan's Stonewall National Monument. What? Birthplace of the modern LGBTQ rights movement in response to Interior Department guidance. Oh man, they just want to go. Yeah, that's bad. Look, I've been to the Stonewall Monument. That was the site, the bar, first one of the first protests, the first, like it says, birthplace of the modern LGBTQ rights movement. A great little memorial, I guess, on Christopher Street in New York. But this is the beginning of the extraction of DEI from our culture. The Interior Department just went ahead and took away the pride flag from that. Um, expect gay activists to rise up and protest, although it just would seem like they do these things, and well, yeah, we should just go out there and protest. I mean, it's ridiculous. They didn't take down the monument, but they took away the pride flag. And then let's see, and then we talked about the Nancy Guthrie story. Sad because nothing seems to make sense. I heard a criminologist today say she's not even sure if the the person of interest who is supposedly behind the ransom notes is real. She says it's a coin flip. Now there's this guy in this video that Kash Patel has released these new images showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at the Guthrie residence the morning of the disappearance, and they're just hoping that the crowdsourcing might work. Crowdsourcing the public might get them some clues. And then there's the Letnick story, which we talked about. Under questioning the Senate hearing today, acknowledged visiting Jeffrey Epstein in 2012 on the private island. He's been to the island. And Letnick told lawmakers, I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with him. Okay. You're in the island. I wasn't in the island. Most Americans weren't. You had some business with him. Mr. Letnick, you lied. So, how about other people? What are they lying in terms of their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? All right. Other things. Oh, they had a hearing today where Congress was really beating up on the heads of ICE and Homeland Security, and really, it's pathetic how the heads of ICE and Homeland Security don't have better answers for what happened to Alex Preddy, to Renee Good. And really, it's ridiculous that they're up there because the only people who have the answers is the people who the sycophants uh, are beholden to, and that's Donald Trump. So I just kept looking at the and the Congress people were going hard. Members of Congress, mostly Democrat, going really hard. This guy Correa, I think Lou Correa from Santa Ana down in Orange County. Oh, he let him have it. There was some good questioning on the part of Democrats, but what kind of answers are you going to get out of these flunkies who know nothing? They know nothing. If you want the answers, you got to go to the top. That's Donald Trump. All right, well, that's the news of the day. I mean, the Bad Bunny news is, hey, Bad Bunny still won the Super Bowl. If you don't think he won the Super Bowl, read my columns. You can read them on Substack or go to Inquirer.net. I wrote it for the Filipino community. You know, the Philippines has a very similar kind of background to Puerto Rico, except the Philippines got their independence. And maybe because the Philippines was so far away, the United States didn't want to mess with them. And just thought, oh, well, we'll put bases there in Asia. We want that. But we'll keep Puerto Rico in control. And so Puerto Rico's gone through this evolution. They're kind of, as Bad Bunny pointed out on the Grammys, hey, they're American, but depends. They're kind of just like when my father came here as an American national, he was colonized, but he still didn't have all the privileges of an American. So in some ways, it's sad because it is modern day colonialism. And what's the answer? You give Puerto Rico their freedom? You saw, I thought it was quite telling in that scene where they show Bad Bunny climbing up the power pole. When Hurricane Maria hit, I think that was 2017. Remember, Trump went down there, threw paper towels at the people. It was an insult. This was Puerto Rico's revenge. And I think the idea is to say, hey, look, the Americas are one. It's ironic because as the U.S. wants to isolate, as the U.S. wants to say, hey, we are, pulling away from NATO, we're pulling away from Europe. Look, if really Donald Trump believes in Monroe, right, the Monroe Doctrine of the 19th century, of 1823, James Monroe, who owned slaves. If he really believes that, hey, I want a modern Monroe Doctrine, well, he better take Bad Bunny seriously. But Bad Bunny was saying, hey, we are the Americas together. We're united. And who's talking about unity? I mean, Bad Bunny was talking about Canada and Central America and Latin America, the South America, the United States, America, the Americas. Who's talking like that? Bad Bunny is. I don't hear too much about Donald Trump. I think he's busy trying to figure out a new distraction for the Epstein files. Because boy, who are those 6 people that Kana and Massey, the congressmen who are looking into this and who've been very aggressive, who are the six congressmen involved? 6 people protected. I think they let out that they were members of Congress. But if you're not thinking cover up, If you're still holding on to the idea of transparency, there's no transparency here. Not when this is what's in the 3 million documents that are released, and there's still another 2.5, 3 million that are being concealed. Yeah, this Epstein file story is not going away. All right, that's it for me. We're going to end it here. Hey, listen, thank you for joining me. I just come on uh, and talk about the news. Nostalgic for the old days when we just like pop open the mic and say, hey, give me a call, 1-888-555-1212, 1-888-555-1212. Now, who listens to talk shows now? I mean, I guess you can listen to, I guess Sirius has some good talk shows. There's still some two-way things, but we have this on YouTube. We can just go out and say, hey, yeah, leave something in the comments. Tell me what you think. Hey, I do these shows here on the YouTube channel, but I also do my one-man show, my theatrical monologues. Check them out. Next show at the Petro stage, March 14th, 15th, 16th, and 19th. Emil Amok Anchorman is what it's called. If you're watching the scroll on the screen, there it is. It's free with donation, live or live stream. Check it out. Go to playground-sf.org. Go to the box office. Look for Emil Amok Anchorman. And I'll let you know about other shows as they come up. I'm going to be in Fresno. I'm going to be in Sacramento. And yeah, so it's shaping up to be a nice spring. Oh, I'm also going to be in the East Coast. I don't think I'm performing on the East Coast, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm coming back. All right. Oh, we like to close with a little loving kindness, right? Because you need a little loving kindness. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time.